Wow, everyone. As per usual, the headline is not representative of the body contained within the article. I don't expect you to be shocked or surprised because it's merely representative of the kind of people who are contributors to the CBC. Headline of the CBC News Business: Immigrants less likely to own single detached houses, Stats Can report finds. In Vancouver, however, immigrant owned detached homes are worth an average $255,000 more. It's being reported on June 11th, 2019. So, think about the contradiction in the headline. Immigrants less likely to own single detached houses. Then it says, in Vancouver, however, immigrant owned detached houses are worth an average of $255,000 more. So that statement is not a reality or a reflection of reality. But of course, it's dependent on where you're talking about as far as the geography in this country. So based on the subportion of that headline, it could have been the exact opposite by suggesting that immigrants actually buy houses that are not just detached, but worth a whole lot more than the typical Canadian can ever afford. Immigrants own proportionally fewer single detached homes than Canadian-born residents, a new report has found. But in Vancouver, the ones they do own likely come with a higher sticker price. First of all, if you're Canadian-born, that means you've lived here your entire life, I would suspect, right? So, of course, new immigrants shouldn't even be close to being a representative number of owning as many detached houses as a natural-born Canadian. But once again, let me get a little further down here, folks, and you'll see that, like I said, the headline is very misleading once you see the actual numbers. A Statistics Canada study published Tuesday explores the degree to which immigrants are integrated into different segments of the housing markets in Toronto and Vancouver. So they're only talking about two places in Canada, Toronto and Vancouver. Keep that in mind, folks. It found that immigrants own 43% of all residential properties in Toronto and 37% in Vancouver. So let me just repeat that for you, folks. It found that immigrants own 43% of all residential properties in Toronto and 37% in Vancouver. So, they are statistically below halfway, right? 43 and 37. But the fact that immigrants own damn near close to half of all residential properties in Toronto and in excess of a third of those in Vancouver, those aren't statistical anomalies or something in the decimal point as far as percentage. Those are huge numbers, folks. The study examined only properties owned by people who live in Canada, therefore excluding foreign-owned properties. It used assessed property values from 2016 in Toronto and 2017 in Vancouver. So think about that. So it's not even those Chinese foreign investors that are buying up or investing in a lot of properties in Vancouver or Toronto, right? So these are people that actually supposedly live in Canada or Canadians, right? Or immigrants to Canada. So think about what that represents as a number, folks, because these people are left out of the equation. Of the homes owned by immigrants in Vancouver, 39% are single detached houses compared to 48% for Canadian-born residents. So think about it. So in Vancouver here, you're talking about 39% of single detached houses that are owned by immigrants compared to 48% for Canadian-born residents. So what are you talking? 9% difference. Ooh, a whole 9%, right? So, like I said, now they can make that claim, right? So, 39% in Vancouver that own single detached home, it is less than 50%. But hell, even Canadians are below the 50% threshold. They're only at 48%. They're only 9% more than immigrants, new people to this country. Wow, folks. Like I say, and we're not done yet. Yet in Vancouver, those immigrant-owned detached properties had an average assessed value of $1.8 million, $255,100 more than the average value of a detached home owned by Canadian residents. So once again, that number, see how things are flipped upside down there in Vancouver, right? And 1.8 million. And even if there are a substantial portion of domestic Canadians that can afford that $1.8 million price tag for a detached home, think about how many Canadians aren't even close to being able to afford a house that's almost worth $2 million for a semi-detached home. And have you ever seen any of the picture of these homes? Yeah, they're not mansions, right? These are shit shacks that, where I'm from in New Brunswick, might be worth 50, 60,000. But magically in Vancouver, they could be worth up to 1.8 million. Wow, folks. I can't believe Canadians are foolish or naive enough to go along with this stuff and keep paying these ridiculous prices for these homes. Well, I guess that's probably a reason why tiny homes and people buying buses, or people, commingling or have co-housing now, living with multiple families or people together. I guess that's why Canadians are forcing to have to live in sardine cans, or figure the best way they can get by as far as socialized habitation, all in the name of keeping the bigwigs and the ruling class in this country and all those that are connected and part of it wealthy beyond belief at your expense. So here you see, this is a chart there. But yeah, it's all right there in the numbers, folks. All you got to do is pay attention. Oh, and the other thing is kind of ignore that headline aspect of this article. Because once again, as you're seeing, it's a little bit out of touch with the actual facts, figures, and statistics contained within the body of the article. Although not completely, or not entirely. Like I say, they know how to manipulate things just enough to keep you confused and confounded. In Toronto, the report found the picture was a bit different. About half of properties owned by immigrants were single-detached homes, compared to 60% of homes owned by Canadian-born residents. So once again, even in Toronto, the report found the picture was a little bit different. About half of properties owned by immigrants were single. So half! Half! They're literally saying half here. Compared to what? A whole 60% of Canadians that were actually born in Canada, right? So, 9% versus 10%. Yeah, huge difference, right? But actually, they're even admitting that half. It's a good thing it didn't go a whole 1% higher, because then it'd be more than half, right? So it's just pure manipulation. Hey, what's that old saying? There are lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics. The report found only a slim margin of difference in assessed property values of the homes owned by the two groups. In this case, the detached properties of Canadian-born residents were worth about $20,000 more than those owned by immigrants. In Canada, a whole $20,000. Well, in Toronto or Vancouver, what's $20,000? Right? In comparison, contrast to the valuation, the overvaluation, the speculative valuation of those homes, that's a drop in the bucket. That's chump change, right? That's something that falls out of your pocket in these ridiculous, overinflated markets. Anyways, folks, I'll post a link to this article in the description of the video below. Once again, listen, that's why I post these links. Just go ahead and read it. If you think that I'm misrepresenting what's being said in this article, or what's being contained within this article, then hey, read through yourself and offer in the comment section a rebuttal. Right? Or push back against what I got to say. But you'll come along and you'll realize that, yeah, Bennett's completely right and correct in his assumption that the headline in this article, even though I guess somewhat is factually correct, but come on, right? To suggest what? Canadians are doing so great and the immigrants are doing poor, more or less, and is that the pretense they're trying to go with? To be honest with you, I don't even know why CBC does this stuff, because I think they just confuse and confound people a lot more than they ever educate and inform them. Because, I mean, a lot of people will just read the headline article and just move along like, I guess the immigrants aren't doing very well in this country. Poor buggers. And they'll be out repeating that headline and saying, these poor immigrants, we've got to help them. Well, it doesn't look like they need a whole lot of help here. Looks like they're doing damn near close to how Canadians are doing. And, I mean, as a Canadian, natural-born Canadian, look what you've had to go through to get that point. Immigrant just had to basically show up, right? So, anyways, folks, I keep trying to educate and inform, pushing back against these kind of narratives, giving people at least the ability or willingness to think outside the box and challenge these kind of things. But once again, I don't know. How well is it working out? I don't know. Some people, I admit there are some people in Canada that are paying attention and being vigilant and doing the right thing. But let's recognize most Canadians aren't. What's it going to take, other than an earthquake or a tsunami, to shake the Canadian people under their indoctrinated slumber? I don't know. Maybe a major economic crash, recession, or depression? Yeah, that'll probably do it. Outside of that, at this point, doesn't seem like much else is going to work. I've been trying to do it for, going on 4 years, or maybe in excess of 4 years now, and my success can be measured in very, very, very tiny increments at best. Hey, it is what it is. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.